Um, it's something that is missing. Like most people just join government because like Ms. Bora said, by accident or easy life. So I allude with her and say a resounding yes. Anybody can pursue career in anything, be it in government, public, private, social, or any kind of sector. So yes, anyone can pursue career in government. Then two, how did I join government? Interesting. So it's a long story because Tina even knows this story. As a young girl, right from school, though I wanted to be a pharmacist because I loved one of my auntie at may her soul rest in peace. Even though I knew I was very terrible in sciences, but that motivation of, oh, I want to be like Auntie Hawa. She's a pharmacist. She works in NAFDAC. And my dad was like, yeah, she's my sister. You can do it. But, along the line, I had interest in government. I then passed my science courses and I had to go back to government. And one day I was sitting and my mom said, you love diplomacy. We noticed you like watching CNN. She now said, I found a course for you to go and study. I was like, what? She now said, international studies. You're friendly, you like traveling because even when you went to secondary school, you always write down your name for excursions to the African countries. Your sister never did that. So I'm like, oh, sounds interesting. You know, that kind of encouragement. You could be an ambassador, you can do this, do that. So, and I did it, went to ABU's area, studied international studies. And of course, before I got admission, she's like, look, for you to build a career in diplomacy or international relations, you need to go and study French. She made me do French school for a year before I went to study international studies. And certainly, while I was in school, I was always involved in those activities, association, department association. So because I knew French was compulsory in our department. So I was put in the education committee where I was were tutoring both my mates, my seniors on French courses, the tutorials. I don't know if they still do it back then in school, where despite the main lectures in the evening, before the exams, there'll be like, tutorials for different courses. So I took French and, because of that, I was involved in politics, member of the social science parliament and all that. But I think, again, one thing I was focused on, I only had three places I wanted to work: foreign affairs, LNG, and United Nations. Because I think I was inspired by Kofi Annan. When I watched TV, I like, whoa, look at this Ghanaian. He speaks to the whole world and everybody listens. And, of course, I did my NYC and we were going around to pick our community development. And I listened to, they'll give us preliminary details of all the CDS. But when I heard about the Millennium Development Goals, I was like, oh, I think I fit into this. Mind you, it's not like, you're focused, but you just know that, oh, this sounds like what I would like to do. Of course, because we're much younger, you don't have direction, you get be mentored by your parents or your sisters or your elderly ones. So I did that for a year, but I now got a job where the guy, because I'm hands-on, he now started calling me his HR. I was like, okay, maybe I should build a career in HR. And I did. After NYC, worked for 2 years. I left for my master's and I did my master's in human resources. So I came back and I started my business, my consulting firm. And while doing the HR consulting firm, I was doing things on the side. I was worried about youth um, unemployment, the of jobs, but there was a skills gap. So I was working on, youth development skills. I looked for partners. I remember my colleague, a friend of mine saw something G was doing. He said, look, Rose, what you plan to do, General Electric is doing. Over, and from there, we decided to work together to do this thing. So I have a mentor who is my pastor. Right from when I was in ABU, I would email him and say, oh, I want to change, I want to do skills conference. You know how your mentor is. And that guy never replied me. And so in 2016, she said she's looking for a young person who will do something on youth and women economic, a protege or mentee, as people call it. And he called me and said, oh, you need to go meet this woman. I like, met her and she told me, oh, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do. And I took notes and I commenced, the whole strategy. And after like 4 months, I saw my mentor and like, oh, congratulations. I like, what happened? She now said, because she never paid me. And I didn't bother myself. I was just doing my thing, going to her office and doing the strategy, how we can empower. I think she wanted to empower 10,000 women across the country. And she said, she's made you a special assistant. Like, wow. So I went to meet her and she said, I like, oh, my pastor said this. She doesn't say, yes, don't you know, you're very hardworking. Do you think I will leave you? And that's how my career in government started. And I missed the one that my dream was foreign affairs. And Tina and I applied. And it was obvious. It's either going to be Tina or me. And everybody told me it's going to be Tina because, for some reason, I don't know why. They're like, oh, her parents work in government. Like, okay, fine. And we both applied. Tina, can you remember? I were Yaradua Center for the foreign affairs exam. I didn't get it. That hurt me. I think it was one of the things that made me cry. And I'm like, oh, I'm not going to apply for government. But fast forward, and that's how I got my job. And I've been working since 2016 till date. Like Ms. Bora said, it's all about hard work. It's all about commitment. It's all about your passion, being focused. Because to be honest, I never dreamt I'll end up in government following what happened to me in foreign affairs. I like, you know what, let me just go to the private sector where things are based on merit. But there are different ways in which people can enter government. So maybe I'll stop here, then we can continue. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Kefas. Thank you. In fact, you highlighted one of the main things that is also very important. I think one of the things that you probably didn't realize that your mother did for you was she helped you to identify your skills and your interests, which is also very integral to working in government and building a career. I think a lot of times, a lot of people do not recognize what their skills are or what their interests are, and so navigating that part is always very difficult for them. It's good to hear that one person was an accidental civil servant. It's good to hear that the second person also had someone who identified a parent who identified assisted to identify skills, and that's building on those skills helped to pave that pathway for you. Thank you so much for your question. Please don't go away. We have another round of questions for you. Let's head on to our third speaker, Ms. Sophia Abu. I think the first question is already very clear. We're still going to throw it to you anyway. Do you believe that women can build a career in government, and how did you get into government? Thank you, Ms. Abu. You have the floor, please.
Thank you so much, Nwatam. Good morning, everybody. Well done, first of all, for gathering these amazing people here to have this conversation. I'm honored to be a part of the conversation this morning, afternoon. So do I believe people can build a career in government? It's a no-brainer. The answer, and everybody has said so, is absolutely yes. Anybody can build a career in government, in any of the sectors. One of the things that I love about government work, essentially, a couple of things actually, is the structure. I think the first one is around structure, right? There's processes, there's hierarchy, there's, obvious outputs when you put in your best. So just a structured environment. And it's one of the things for me, I'm quite a structured person. So it was a no-brainer when I started to think of how I wanted to advance in my career. So structure is great. There's the security. In government, job security is very, very high, a lot higher perhaps than some of the other sectors like the private sector. There's also sort of like the strata, right? So in terms of your path to grow, it's almost guaranteed that if you work hard and you do what you're supposed to do, there's an obvious growth, career path growth for you in government. So, absolutely anybody can build a career in government. My story around how I got into government is not quite as interesting as Rose's story. It's very simple and very basic. One of the first things is my parents worked in government. And so that's all I knew and sort of understood growing up. And if you know some of, the older millennials, as they call us, when we were growing up, that was kind of like the focus. Your parents will just tell you, it's going to school, probably get a master's degree and get a job in government. It was almost like there was no other way. It's different from now, where there's so many opportunities, so many interesting sort of other areas to look into. So it was predetermined, I would say, for me. I did do a little bit of broadcasting, did do a little bit of random things here and there, but it was obvious all the time that ultimately I wanted to go into government for a number of reasons. The first one is, and I think it was Nana who mentioned earlier, around this misconception that, if you go into government, you would just go there and have it easy. And another misconception was the fact that it was, a lot of government systems are kind of archaic. And, there are all these old ideas and bureaucratic processes. And it was very, very important for me to go into a role where I could sort of break all of those stereotypes, bring fresh perspectives and ensure that I was changing the narrative. So that was one of the biggest sort of motivations for me to go into government, ensuring that I was going there with fresh perspectives and breaking, those narratives that people always thought government work was about. I mean, my story around what I studied and all of that is quite long, because I went, originally was a science student, studied microbiology. Then I went for a master's. I know it's interesting. Went for a master's in energy, environmental technology, and economics. And so I had all these different sort of areas, and it was quite kind of tough to hone in or narrow down as to where exactly I wanted to focus. But I guess there's a question around, how you focus in government, and I'll let that question come around. So yeah, that's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you also for the simplicity in your story. Like you said, there was no big story around you getting into government. And I can also relate. Yes, my parents were in government. I mean, just like your story, it was expected, that was what we understood. And there was stability. We saw everything with, there was job security and all that. But I also quite must appreciate the fact that you had the zeal to bring in fresh perspective, because we all understand that the processes in government can be very archaic, even the way we write. We still write in 1922 eras, the English that we use. And so it's also very interesting to hear that you wanted to bring a fresh perspective. And I hope that you've been able to do that in your role. So thank you for your response. And I go back again to Ms. Bora. Ms. Bora, I would like to ask you, what skills do you think are crucial for building a successful career in government today? Ms. Bora, please, you have the floor.
Thank you. With every career path, there are certain expectations. Hard work is crucial. From my experience in when I joined the ministry, I was given an opportunity to I would there were so many departments. At that time, there were about, I think about 6 or 7, but now there are a whole lot more. And I was running away from civil litigation, but somehow
muffled. Hello, you're a bit muffled. We can't really hear you.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, fine. When I moved back to Abuja, I was posted to legal drafting department. And I thought to myself, really, I mean, how hard could it be? I'm a lawyer. I did legal draft in university and in law school. I mean, how hard could it be? And when I got into legal drafting, first of all, I realized that I really didn't know. For the first 2 years, 3 years, believe you me, I didn't know what I was doing. thank God for some colleagues who were willing to hold my hand. And the most important thing that I realized for me was a determination to succeed. So I would say, first of all, you have to be determined to succeed. People your best, whatever is working, you want to do. And I think it was a skill that I did not know, and I needed success. I identified colleagues who were willing to impart that knowledge. You know, who acted as mentors. I think a few things. So training is important. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, but you, it's a bit muffled. We can't really hear you. So.
But I think it's the network. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Okay, fine. Secondly, identify persons who are willing to impart knowledge. And who are willing to impart knowledge to act as your mentors. You need to be hard working. You need to put in the hard work. You need to put in the hard work. There's something to skills required. I identified as a legal practitioner who was determined to succeed in the legal justice field. You have to be analytical. You have to know the law. You have to be willing to research. I mean, you can't. I realized that I couldn't be spoon fed. You know, a lot of my colleagues that I saw at that time would just receive files and then look for colleagues who were knowledgeable and willing to assist them. You would get the files and then I was willing to make the mistake, and I was willing to learn, willing to put in the effort, and I was willing to put in the effort. So like I said earlier, you have to be willing to do yourself, you have to read constantly. And that is one of the things that I think we become lazy after some time. You know, you think, oh, okay, you can do this. You're willing to innovate. You're not willing to learn new skills. With law, you know, it's dynamic. There are new things every day.
Hello, Miss Bura, we can't hear you. Okay, I think that maybe we will come to Miss Bura later because we seem to have lost you. So I will head on to our second speaker, Miss Kefas. We'll go back to you again. And so the question to you is, how do people know what area to focus on? And I think you are the right person to respond to this because you said you earlier mentioned that you had a parent that was able to identify your skills. So how do people know what area to focus on? Because government has an endless list of thematic areas. You have health, you have finance, you have development, you have human rights, there's so many aspects to government. There's so many, in fact, there's an endless list of thematic areas and sectors. So how do you know what area to go into or what subjects to go into? Miss Kefas, please, you have the floor.
All right, thank you, Tina. I think, this generation are lucky, unlike us, where, it was the transition to internet connectivity and access to information. So for me, I think one of the greatest problem for, I don't know if it's peculiar to Nigeria, is that access to information. And it's very key. And I don't know, for some people, you already have, like Sophia said, was predetermined. She had a parent as her own mentor, to work. They were working in government. And of course, then I guess life was good for them, in the sense that she saw her mom worked very hard, and she's one of the most iconic women in media and all that. So it's easy for her to say, oh, I want to work in government. For some, like, I don't think, okay, my dad was in the public sector, he was in the police, but my mom was a housewife, but she played a role for us, because if we come and we say we want to work here, she said, no, you can't. I don't know, for some reason, if I look back, I'll just say she had like gift from God, because it's not like she had friends, but she was like, oh, you like meeting people, you go and study international studies. My sister, you have to go and read medicine. I remember when we applied for jobs, that jobs that should blatantly tell us no. I remember when I got Guinness, shortlisted for Guinness, like, you can't go to Guinness. Oh, and again, it's good to have mentors. I had a pastor who is like a mentor. If I go to him and say, oh, I want to work in MTN, like, why do you want to, why MTN? And you see, when people ask you question why, you just find out that you just want to work somewhere, and it's not because it's a skill. Like, why don't you look bigger? Why don't you look at Total? Why don't you look at Chevron? Why don't you look like, so it's also good to identify like people who will wish you well, people who will tell you to dream bigger. And I was lucky because till today he plays a role, because I know back then when I say I want to do this, it's like, why? Then take for instance, access to information is key. Remember when I said I had a HR firm, but I was doing this youth skills development. And one thing I love doing is I love to map out. You know, when I was doing this conference or planning to do this conference, I started writing down who are the agencies in charge of this sector. So youth development. In fact, I remember I was in the shower and the Holy Spirit said, Ministry of Youth Development. Like, I don't want to work with government, but I wrote it down. And I went to that ministry. I searched their website and I went to the ministry and I asked someone, if you want to do something on youth development skills, like conference, which department can I go to? And the guy said, social mobilization. And I remember walking into that unit saying, oh, introducing myself, this is what I intend to do. And for some reason, the guy was impressed. Like, this is a young person, and you're thinking about all the upcoming young people. So one of the things that, because to be honest, it's easy for us to say, okay, yeah, like you said, we are phenomenal women, but government has a way to waste people's time. And, you know, getting access to information from government institutions is, it's a tax, because if you meet the wrong person, you're going to hate government for life. But if you meet the right people, like other speakers have said, because you still find outliers in public and ministries, departments, and agencies. So for me, I'll say one of the key thing is that access to information. Map out what you want to do in life. Because for me, if I'm doing something, I write down, okay, which ministries, under Ministry of Youth Development, what are the agencies under it? You know, you start seeing that, oh, that's why I learned about government before I even started working in government. So it was easy when I now got a government job. It was easy for me to do my job because I'd already started mapping out as someone who was an entrepreneur before I go anywhere. Then again, in that skills conference, I remember saying, who is in charge of job creation? I will use Google. And to my greatest surprise, job creation was Ministry of Industry, Trade, and Investment. I like, I would never have thought that job creation mandate would be under Ministry of Trade, Industry, Trade, and Investment. But guess what? When I mapped out those key agencies, I wrote to them, and those were the agencies who got back to me and, you know, fixed meeting, were excited about what I was doing, and, you know, were able to sign partnership. So now it still boils down to the kind of skills you need to have. Like Nana said, you know, tenacity, determination, hard work. And if you map out what you want, if you're in the environment field, social inclusion, one thing I knew as a young person, I didn't want to work in the finance sector because I'm bad with maths. If you just say, give me 99 times 2 or 99 times divide by 7, you've lost me. So I never wanted to work in finance sector because I knew that for you to thrive in finance sector, you have to have ICANN, you have to have CFA, you have to have this. So even when they're like, oh, there were opportunities for me to work in CBN, oh, I beg, I don't want to go there because I like to strive to be the best. So I don't think I have that energy to get some of these specifications. So it's okay to know that you don't want these places, and it's okay to know that there are places that are best for you. So one of the things, again, I would say is, how do you have access? Is if you map out what you want in life and you follow these institutions. Like, take for instance, for me, as a young person, I'm not into entertainment. So you don't see me following Davido. I have nothing wrong with it. And the rest, maybe I have 1 or 2 favorite musicians or people in the entertainment industry. But you see, I follow those who I want to grow into. I want to learn from them. New disruption, new policies, like I knew from day one, I never used to follow KPMG and PwC, but I used to follow agencies like McKinsey. What does McKinsey have to say about reports? They tell you what the future is going to be like, oh, the digital age, just like now everybody's talking about AI. So I get to follow those agencies. Then I get to look for people who are already in the sector. So luckily for me, I have a pastor. My mom, she has native intelligence. Then I had a sister who worked with the Big Four. So I go to her and say, what do you think about this? So she always taught me, basic skills you need to have. And I think one of the greatest thing is, I think access to information is good. Two, mapping out what you want in life, because it's just like how you pray to God, just draw out what you need to do. And before you know it, it might not be easy for some, like Sophia said, you get the job. For some, they applied. Me, I applied for government job. I didn't get it. I remember crying when I didn't get the foreign affairs, despite passing my exams, doing well and all that. But you see, for some, it's people who recommend you. So in whatever you do, just tenacity is a key. You need to be determined. Determination is very key. You need to be focused. And how do you become focused is by working at those sectors. So like back to your question is, how do you, access this government? Because that very, the tons and tons of ministries, departments, and agencies. But one key thing you can do is the ministries have helped, because once you know the ministries, under the ministries, you see the departments and agencies. Like I have a young girl who just got recruited, and she's like, oh, they gave me a tax to get people into social, whatever, into social safety net, social inclusion. I'm like, yeah, what you can do is look at the ministries, just go on the ministry's website. Then from there, you see the agencies they have, because automatically, like take for instance, humanitarian, or the NASCO, the social investment agencies will be under the humanitarian ministry. And so like, oh, that really helps me. But for some people, you need to get mentors who are already in the field you want to go to, be it environment, climate, social, finance, or whatever sector you have to be. You need to look for people you need to walk up to. You also need to get information of what you need to do to thrive in those sectors, because accept going to work in those sectors is not enough. But you need to hone your skills and say, where do I want to work? What do I need to do? Like take for instance, in my office, luckily I've worked in the Millennium Development Goals. And two, I was already working on a skills conference where I had interacted with government agencies before I got my government job. Even in my role, that some sectors I don't bother myself, but the ones I'm focused on, I keep focusing on it. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ms. Kefas. That was a basket of response. And if I hear you correctly, one of the things you said was to, first of all, identify your skills or your interests through information. So you have to search for the information. There should be access to information. And I think that this is the first step that people need to take. You need to identify what areas, what ministries, what departments, what agencies you have an interest in. You still highlighted identifying your skills, speaking to mentors and people who can also guide you along that path. I think that this is very essential, because a lot of times, people are confused on where to look and where to go. But like you said, one, it's good to identify your skills or areas of interest. Two, find information regarding the ministries, department, and agencies that cover those areas, and then also map up what you want to do. I think that mapping out what you do also will help you to identify specific ministries, departments, or agencies that offer the areas or subjects that you are interested in. Please don't go away again. We still have another round of questioning for you. And I'd like to go to so the question is for you, what has sustained your zeal working for government? Because truth be told, I think that people find the private sector more industrious, more rewarding in a certain kind of way. But for people working in government, we know that there are limited resources, sometimes limited opportunities. So staying back in government for over a decade, what is it that has kept your zeal going? Please, you have the floor, Abu.
Thank you, Nwatam. That's an interesting question. I think the first thing I will say is, and you mentioned it at the start of the conversation, was around passion to serve, right? So when you think of yourself as a public servant, you think of yourself as someone who is, in government to serve. And so that passion to serve has to be very, very strong. Otherwise, like you said, the government will government you. And then you find yourself not sure if it's something you want to continue doing. So passion to serve is very critical. I think the other thing is around the outcomes, right? When you see the work that you do impact on certain lives, impact on, the society at large, that kind of, for me, has maintained my zeal to keep doing what I do. And all of that ties into sort of personal goals. At the end of the day, for me, personal goals are around achieving excellence, first of all, in whatever it is I'm doing. And then second of all, being able to see the direct sort of almost like beneficiary of the work that you're doing, even if it's not really direct, sometimes it's indirect, So some of these things are essential for you to keep doing what you do. One of the things that I will say is there can be a lot of frustration, right? Working in government. Rose had mentioned quite a number of things, there can be that. But it's important as women, as people, for me, what I try to do is when it gets too much, take a step back, reevaluate the reasons for which you're doing what you're doing. Pivot a little if you have to. And when I say pivot a little, it's not necessarily, leave your job and go elsewhere. It's decide if there's additional things you can do while working in government to sort of sustain your zeal and your passion to continue to serve, so that thing sort of helps reduce or mitigate some of the frustrations that you might have while you're working as your time goes on. So I think for me, it's those three main things. One, the passion to serve, two, the outcomes, being able to see the impact, and then finally my personal goals of being excellent at whatever you do. My mother would always say, and it's something we always made fun of her, she would hire people and she would give them these names, these titles that were so, my mom can have a sweeper who is on her team and she'll say the person is the CEO of environmental, so it makes that person feel really good. So some of the validation I get at work for some of the work that I do as well has helped to sustain my working in government.
Wow. Thank you so much. That was quick, sharp, and to the point. And you highlighted three issues. I highlighted three responses which were really addressed the question. One, the passion to serve. It is really, really important. The passion has to be there because there are so many levels and layers of frustration. And sometimes you ask yourself, am I supposed to be doing this or not? And so the passion has to be there. The second thing, which is also very rewarding, is the impact of, like you said, the impact of when you see the impact of your job and what you do every day, you see how it impacts a large number of people. And so you want to continue. And then also personal goals. I think your personal development, I think that is one area that a lot of people don't even speak about as well, the personal goal and development, because the thing is, whether you think about yourself leaving, just a scenario, if you leave the government, what do you take out of it if you don't have any goals that you have achieved personally? It's not just a place where you just come and take, but also you have to also build yourself. You have to build your capacity in one way or the other. So with or without government, you have goals that you have established, skills that you have honed, and you can use them across board. So thank you so much, Ms. Abu. We have another round of questions. Please don't go. And this will go to all our speakers. I think that sometimes when the frustrations are there in your face and you're asking yourself tough questions, do I stay here? Because I would like to tell you that a lot of people that I have met, my colleagues who have worked in government, there have been times where they wanted to leave. They were like, today is the day where I'm leaving as a result of certain frustrations. But then also there are times where so many pivotal things have happened and you've just realized that this is where I'm supposed to be. So I would like to ask our speakers today, can you share a pivotal moment that has defined your career path in government? I think I'll pose this question to Ms. Bora. If you're here, if you want to continue from where you stopped earlier, or you want to go right into the question, sharing the pivotal moment that defined your career path, you have the floor, Ms. Bora.
Thank you. I'd like to use this opportunity to apologize for some reason the network is just not cooperating. The other two panelists really have highlighted quite a lot of what I would have said regarding your career in government. Really, for you to have a very successful career in government, you have to be determined to put in the effort. You have to be willing to also develop yourself. The one thing I have also realized is that training is very important because women have, sometimes, things are dynamic, the society is dynamic, things change. And if you believe to let yourself, to keep abreast with the changing times, really.
Hello, Mrs. Burr, we can't hear you. You sound very muffled. We can hardly make out the words. Maybe while you attend to your internet, we can go to the next speaker and then we'll come back to you to answer the same question. So Ms. Kefas, the same question goes to you. Can you share a pivotal moment that has defined your career path in government? Ms. Kefas, you have the floor. Are you there? Can you hear me? Can anyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I think maybe we will jump to you, Ms. Abu. You seem to be the one that is present at the moment. So if you can please take the question, can you share a pivotal moment that has defined your career?
My network today.
Yes, sure. I think I'm happy to go ahead while Ms. Bura tries to sort out her network. So thanks for the question, Nwatam. I'll tell a short story. And as I'm sure everyone has realized, my responses are quite short. For someone who speaks a lot, I try to to keep my responses to these questions concise. So for me, the most sort of rewarding time, I guess, and it was a pivotal moment in my career, was during the COVID pandemic, right? Where after everybody had been asked to go home, there was still a lot of uncertainty around what work was going to look like. There were a lot of institutions still trying to figure out the work from home policies and all of that. And for the first, I would say 4 or 5 weeks, it seemed like a vacation for me, right? Because I was home, I wasn't really working. We had all just been asked to go home first, right? And there was going to be a schedule of work. They were still working around that. So the first four weeks was interesting. It was vacation-y. I was quite happy to be away from work. And then after those 4 weeks, I started to get bored. So then I went and I tried to sign up for a couple of courses, try to do something active with my brain, because I think for me, even though I like enjoyment and I like to rest, after 4 weeks, I feel like I start to crave, the work juice again. And so I signed up for all of that. And so I was doing all of that. And I remember at the time there was this project that I had been put on just before the pandemic hit. And I was getting emails, even though I wasn't from work. I was getting at work. I was getting emails from my boss where he was doing quite a lot of the work himself, right? So there were, there was a few things he needed to do, working on presentations, for instance, to our committee of governors. And I found that he was doing all of that himself. And every time I would get the email, I would think to myself, how can I support him? Right? I'm bored-ish. I'm at home. My schedule for going back to the office hasn't quite come out yet. How can I support him? So I sent him an email and I said, sir, I've seen all of these things that you're doing. Is there any way I can help? And he goes, well, okay, fine. From next week, you should start coming back to the office. Now, if you know what had happened in that pandemic time, you would know that everybody was quite worried about working in the office. Everybody was quite happy to be back at home. So the fact that just 6 weeks into being home, because of my aproko, I had been called back into the office was it was interesting for me, because I then thought, oh God, maybe I shouldn't have done this, but I took it in my stride. He's like, yeah, you should come back to the office. It was almost like, since you want to work so much, come back into the office and come and start working. There's a lot we have to do. And so I went back into the office, and even though we were a team of, I think, 6 or 7 persons, in that time when I went back into the office, it was just myself and him, who were in office doing all of the work on that particular project. Fast forward a couple of weeks or months, later, there started to be this rumor that, oh, everybody who was working on this project, there were a few people who were going to get promoted as a result of their work on that project. And so it was, I didn't think anything to it, because I hadn't worked with him longest on the project. There are people who had been longer on that project. So I just, went and sat down, and eventually what had happened was each of the leads of the teams had been asked to recommend one person for a special promotion. Now, I had just been promoted the year before. And if civil service and public service, it takes about 3-4 years for you to get your next promotion. So I wasn't due for promotion for another 3 years or so. And, I'm just sitting back one day, and I'm in the middle of the night, one of my colleagues calls me. He's like, check your email. And I open my email, and I've been given this special promotion. Now, it wasn't that I was the hardest worker. It wasn't that I had worked the longest on the project. I think for me, it was just the fact that I was willing to provide support and willing to work, even though everybody else had sort of gone back to sit. So for me, that was quite defining, because it meant that all you need to do is show up, and show up well. When you show up and you show up well, it may not happen in this same way for everybody. It may not take, this such a short time. It may take longer for most people, for some people, but eventually something happens that sort of gives you a pat on your shoulder and says, okay, this is actually worth it. So for me, that was one of the most pivotal moments in my career.
That was quite an interesting response. I honestly didn't, I don't know what I was expecting, but I didn't expect to hear that. It was quite interesting. And yes, we know how it is. You have to wait for 3-4 years before you get, before you attain the maturity to write your exam. And so that was quite great. I think, yes, commitment to your work is highly, highly, highly important. Hard work, commitment, and all, it can open, unimaginable doors for you. And we really want to take the moment to commend you for that. So congratulations on your special promotion. I would also like to throw the question back to Ms. Kefas, if she's here. Can you share a pivotal moment that has defined your career path in government? If you can, if you're here, please, you have the floor.
Yeah, so sorry, apologies. I took a break, and I sent you a message to give the floor to Sophie. Sophie, congratulations on your special intervention. Just like she said, it might not work for everybody, but I think, again, like Sophie shared, it's how to do things differently in the workplace. I remember my first few months in the workplace, I looked at it and said, I cannot survive here. I'm going to leave these people, But in the absence of not leaving, and I said, I need to do things differently. So first of all, one of the things, so for you to be, I don't know how to put it, way, because most people in government, like eye service, people don't care, because they just want to do things they want to do. But if you do things differently, trust me, you will be you will stand out, you know. So for me, it might not be a special. I kind of changed many things in the organization. When we came, they gave us our call card. I was like, this call card is not nice, you know. Of course, it's not to do it in a nasty manner, but you know, I'll just go on my own, use my money, reach out to like a graphics designer, like, and he will do it. Then I take it to my boss. I like, you know, we're the SDG office. We need to have the sustainable development goals on our card. So I just drafted this. Do you think this is nice? She's like, ah, very nice. And when we changed ours as the executive office, we saw that the civil servants changed theirs. And again, I was like, ah, ma, our website is no good. You know, I'll just, you know, give in my words. And, you know, of course, you have to use like your personal resources just to do things differently. And that made me, you know, at the end that she would say, oh, Grammy Rose, like anything that has to do with digitalization, transformation, she's like, Grammy Rose, you know, which of course I was the youngest. And I was always, you know, we're not a ministry, we're not an agency, we're a program office. We need to stand out. Like take, for instance, our office was very shabby, you know, not like CBN, the Sophie living in skyscrapers and the rest. And one day we went to New York. I like, look, ma, look at how all these offices are. They have the goal advocating of, you know, their mandate. You can see their clear mandate just by looking at the building, looking at the structure. They had SDG. She's like, oh, go and come up with something. So this has really helped. Most people just want to do, you know, they'll say, like, they know me in the office, like, I don't care what you guys have been doing since the day of John the Baptist. And I was like, let's do things differently. And this will not work in other agencies or ministries because, of course, it's more bureaucratic and more, but you need to show value. Like Sophie did when she reached out to us. When COVID hit, we had a lot of work to do. And I told my boss about why not online. I was the one who set up the office Zoom account using my card. Of course, the office paid later, but you see, that helped in every discussion. You know how, so for every meeting, I'll be the one to set up the meeting. Of course, you'll be involved in so many programs and you get to do it. And because I was the one moderating, in fact, at a point in time, I was like, you know what, it's all about giving money to people outside. Why not anybody internally that wants to moderate an event, let's pay them for their, you know, give them resources to do it and all that. So for me, I think it's doing things differently and being determined. And that has helped me because everything in the office, you just say, oh, Gwami Rose. And before you know it, I now developed a new career skill to be like Sophie's mom, Eugenia Abu, and, you know, in internal programs and projects, they'll say, okay, you know, I'll be sitting down to just put to facilitate the meeting Rose. So that was very key because if you do things differently, this is going to help you. So one of the things that I did, I never wanted to be moderating or being the master of ceremony of all our events. And, you know, because of COVID, because of meetings, moderating the Zoom meetings. So everything in that office, when it comes to facilitation, programs, initiatives. So I think it was very key. You know, it might be small, but at least that makes you being involved in so many projects beyond your imagination.
Thank you so much, Ms. Kafas. I think you've gone round to also talking about commitment once again. You have to be committed and, you know, committed in the sense that you go beyond just what is expected of you, sometimes even using your resources. I think that it's very interesting that you have shared and how you have brought about innovation and fresh ideas. And you have, you know, you didn't highlight any specific pivotal moment, but these have been like a string of pivotal moments. I think it's really, really important. One of the things that we have to recognize is that, yes, even though government has operated in a certain way for time, from time immemorial, it's still essential that we bring in hints of fresh ideas and innovation here and there to make our job smoother and also to have to maximize the outcomes. I would like to go back to Mrs. Bora again. If you have sorted out your internet and you would like to take the floor, if you want to share with us a pivotal moment that has defined your career path, please, you have the floor, Mrs. Bora.
Okay, thank you. Once again, I wish to apologize. For some reason, I don't really know what's going on today. Well, one thing I have come to appreciate really regarding my career path is the impact of my job on society and the nation at large. Initially, I never really realized how important the job of a legislative draftsman was until, or really how important you are, until one day I gave an advice regarding a certain bill that was proposed, and the president used the same reasons that I gave to withhold assent to the bill. And then there and then I realized, my goodness, so you mean to tell me that I, little old me, is telling the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria what to do, and he actually did it? It was like, oh wow, that was when I realized, this was a few years back, that was when I realized how important and how key my job is. Really, what we do is we translate government policy into legislation, and that legislation does not just affect me; it affects everybody. Currently, we're undergoing I think a round of constitutional amendments. The constitution is what the ground norm, and it affects everybody in Nigeria. So it got me thinking, and it got me to realize that little me has a big part to play in this entity called Nigeria. I mean, our parents were all civil servants and they played their part, and here I am, playing my part. I have in along the line, I have encountered a lot of people who actually throw jabs and say, "Oh, what is it that you do? Civil servants, you just clock in and clock out." And I'm like, I had to sit down and make people realize that yes, indeed, there are bad eggs. There are people who actually do just clock in and clock out. But then there are also quite a number of people who are actually willing to put in the work, and they are the ones that actually keep the engine running. I think about 2 years ago, it made me, there was a pivotal moment. We had done a legislation which was called the Omnibus Bill, and it, there was nothing like that was ever done in Nigeria. I mean, it actually happened in other jurisdictions, but that was the first time. And after that event, there was a round of awards in the villa. I think it was the vice presidential awards, and I was like, oh, I'm not going to go. And then I told my mother. My mom, who is a core civil servant, was like, my goodness, do you know what that means? You're being recognized by the office of the president. That is very prestigious for a civil servant. And and so when I called the lady who had called me, and I said, okay, fine, I've changed my mind after being convinced by my mom to attend. When I went, I collected the award, my father was watching. When I came home, he was like, I saw you, and that is the office that I walked in some years back. So Nana, I was so proud of you. And I was like, oh my goodness, so little old me actually has an impact in this nation. When things like that makes you, happen, it makes you realize that yes, fine and good. The financial rewards might not really be commensurate to the effort that you put in. But those, key moments where, you see something of commendation for the effort you put in, makes you realize that yes, indeed, you're actually on the right track. And then regarding your years of service, what happens after, a lot of people think, oh, it's all about the money, but it's not. It's first of all, it's about the impact. And really, it's important to develop yourself. To realize yourself so that when you do leave the business, you actually steps that you can use, the consultant, you have different opportunities from the ministry. They have worked in international organizations like the UN. From the ministry, actually have gotten jobs at what's it called? At the I think the US Embassy, and at what do you call this place? The European Commission, from the ministry. So it's important not to really undermine your efforts, but really just, keep at it. Keep at it, and one day, you will achieve bigger heights than you actually imagined.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Bora. Thank you so much for your response. I mean, this question has shed a lot of light on why we chose the three of you to come and speak to us today. You're obviously, women who have put in the work in your careers and have gotten recognitions here and there, who have also been pushed to bring in fresh and innovative ideas into the system, and just your commitment to what it is that you have been doing is really, really important. Audience, if at the very moment we have any questions, I mean, we have a few round of questions to go with our speakers, but just to take a break here to find out if there are questions. If you have a question to ask, you can please put it in the chat box, or you can raise your hand and we will give you the floor to ask your questions.
Tina, I think there's a question in the Q&A.
Okay. Okay, I will read this. There's a question from Jamila Diko, and she said, I'm very passionate about healthcare, and my dream is to work in top position in the health ministry. I have just moved back to Nigeria, and like the speakers highlighted, access to information is difficult. I would like to know how to go about getting mentors specifically and boosting my network. This is very important, Jamila, because that is part of our next round of questions. So if you would just stay put, and you would hear from our speakers on how to get a mentor and also have access to information. Do we have any other questions so far? You can put it in the chat box, or you can raise your hand, or if you have further comments. We still have a round of questions to go. Just 2 rounds of questions because our time is fast spent. Okay, I think so far our speakers have been very elaborate and very clear about how to build a career in government. So our participants really understood and do not have questions. But for Jamila Diko, who has put in a question here, and my next round of question is actually, what role does mentorship play in building a career, and how can you find a network? And then we can also marry that with the question of how to have access to information and network, and how to also network. I think that we can give Ms. Abu the floor. If she can please respond to the question.
Okay, sure. I'm happy to go. So thanks, Nwatam. Mentorship, it plays such a huge role. You cannot even begin to describe what that does. First of all, it gives you something or someone to aspire to or to be like. It provides you with someone to guide you, right? And one of the questions that someone just asked in the chat box around how to find mentors, it's tough. I will start by saying, first of all, it's a misconception, but it's also something that rings true to a little extent, in which it's difficult sometimes for women to mentor women. It's sometimes we find that we're not as accessible as we should be when you're in leadership positions, or even some other higher ranking women. But I think that narrative is changing slightly. Women are gradually recognizing the critical importance to lift other women up. In the past, it was a bit dicey, but that's changing a bit. So right now there is a plethora of women who recognize that they're in a unique position to inspire other women. Now gaining access to those women is the second thing. So how do you then find these mentors who are out there? For me, my advice would be, the first thing is to try to, I know that information is still scarce, but to try to find as much information as you can around or about events that are happening. So quite like this one, there's quite a number of other events out there that women are organizing to be able to have conversations, to be able to dialogue on certain topics. So if you can find events that are happening around the subject area that you're looking for, if it's healthcare, if it's finance, find those events and try as much as you can to participate. So that is the first sort of way to then gain access to certain people who work in certain areas, right? I'd like to even say that as we're sitting here right now, I just got someone who connected to me on LinkedIn, and I looked in the group of attendees here, and she's in here. So you can see that that is already a way to start to network. When you attend these events, you find that you have access to certain people who you may not ordinarily have had access to. So that's the first one. Now, when you attend events like this, the next thing is to try to grab opportunities where you can. So have conversations, ask for guidance where you can, try to ensure that you're, even through social media, following certain social media pages that highlight your areas of interest. And then just keep showing up, right? If you show that you are capable of doing certain things, even if in that moment the person is unable to help you, there will be opportunities that will then come up where they think of you because you've been present, you've been consistent in communicating. When I say consistent in communicating, it's not, don't disturb your mentors, don't harass them. Just have conversations that are value added or have value additions, so that when they're thinking through certain things, they remember, oh, I had a conversation with this lady the other day and she sounds quite well versed in this area, and someone is looking for someone to do this, and so perhaps I should connect them. So that would be my recommendation around finding mentors and being able to leverage those opportunities.
Thank you, Ms. Abu. You're absolutely right. I mean, the era is changing, where women are also lifting women, and you have to painstakingly map out, women who are in your field and find how to get, to them. And I'm also glad that this platform is already providing an opportunity for women to link up with
Can I
each.
jump in there?
Yes, please, Ms. Bora, you are.
Yeah.
Have a.
In addition to that, there's this organization called WIMBIZ, Women in Business. I know a few years ago it was actually just limited to women in business, banking, but now they've actually broadened it, and women in the public sector are also covered. So it's a great opportunity for networking, meeting influential women in various fields. So that is also at least it's an organization that I know that one can actually look into. They have programs regularly in Abuja and in Lagos, and so it's a great opportunity to meet people and to network.
Thank you so much, Ms. Bora. So, Ms. Jamila, you heard, it's also there for you to reach out to people who are also in your sector, in the health sector. And also, Ms. Kefas, do you want to throw in something here on how mentorship plays a role and how people can also find the opportunity to network, access to information? Please share your own views.
Yeah, I think Sophia and Ms. Bora has done a great job. But I would just say, for me, I don't like wasting time. So WIMBIZ is good. There are other women organizations doing great things. But also, I would just like to add, sometimes if you want to deep dive in, go down deep, sectoral mapping, in the sense that, because she said she's a health professional, it would be good to look for, I'm sure, because now there are associations, Women in Health, National Health Associations, those ones you get to meet other professionals like you, and volunteer to do to be part of the ESCO. There are other volunteers And before you know, when you do those things, you get to meet people in your own sector. You can now see the kind of agencies you want to work with. You get to meet people, and before you know it, voila, you see someone like, oh, we're recruiting. Oh, we like what you do. We would like to invite you to speak. And before you know it, you're in there. So also, me, I'm more focused on, focusing on the sectoral pathway to your own career. Oh, I want to work, and you ask them where, to just say anywhere. Anywhere is nowhere. It leads to nowhere. So I think Sophie and Ms. Bora has said it all, but I would just say also, as a health professional, you can look at other agencies, and they have associations. Even when Ministry of and government give advertise their events on TV, on social media. We're hosting the National Health something. You can bop in there, and it's not that bad, especially in Abuja, where conferences are free. You can pop in, you get to see people. Maybe you meet a speaker who resonates with your passion. You can walk up to this person and introduce yourself. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. So as you've heard, Ms. Diko, there are so many opportunities for you to connect with people in healthcare. And I think another thing also is speaking to people one-on-one, apart from also the opportunity that you have here to speak to us and tell us that you're trying to connect with people in healthcare. It's also good when you meet anybody in any ministry to also, put that out there, because truth be told, we are all connected. All our work is connected. Ministry of Finance is connected, CBN is connected to Foreign Affairs, Health is connected to, finance. We're all connected in one way or the other, and we may know somebody there that will be able to assist. So doing the leg Justice, I apologize, and Ministry of Justice as well. So we are all connected because we work under one government, and so one person or the other will be able to assist. We have our final round of questioning today before we close. And the last question is actually a three-armed question in one. And we're just asking for recommendations for people who are trying to get into government, people who want to specialize in an area, and people who also want to advance their career. And we already have a message in the chat box. Somebody was asking what would be the advice for women who are trying to pivot their for women looking to pivot to government. What would your advice be for them? So it's also part of this advice. So it's broken down into three. And we'll first of all go with Ms. Bora. What are your recommendations for somebody who is trying to get into government? Ms. Bora, you have the floor.
We provides for how one can get into government technically, but it's advisable to to network. When you network, you will have a better opportunity, because a lot of times people would just, you can actually fill forms and you will not get the job. You won't get the job. But then when you are able to network and you meet the right person, and the person, has your credentials and knows what you are able to do, the person can definitely recommend you for that particular position. So it's definitely usually referrals are better. So I would encourage us to just keep networking, go for conferences, use that opportunity to meet people, send out your profiles, let them know what you can do and what you're willing to do. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you so much, Ms. Bora. I think today we have made a lot of emphasis on networking. That it is very, very essential. And so if you're trying to get into government, network. There are women here today. You can, like it has already begun, you can reach out to people on LinkedIn. If you're trying to get also in touch with anyone here, you can write us an email, and we will try to see if we can connect you to anyone who you would want to, connect with here today. So it is really, really essential. And Ms. Kefas, will go to you. What are your recommendations for somebody looking to specialize in an area in government?
I think I'll build on Ms. Bora's on networking, and like I always say, I always make emphasis, because that guys, you need to map out the agencies. So it's just not only the government agencies, also the professional bodies, also the internations. Like I've seen young people who just say, "Oh, I want to do this." I like, have you thought of occurred to me? So for you to specialize, you need to do things differently. I think it was Sophie who said, when you go into those events, you need to show people you have value. Like I mentioned to Dr. Jamila on, even when you can offer voluntary services, because I, in the sense that for such a organization like the health agencies or association, you can just volunteer to, you're in the ESCO, and before you know it, it's easier for you to have network, because if you're in a network of group of people, be it women, men, me, I'm not focused on just being in women network, both men and women. Trust me, like Sophie said, it's we all talk about it's getting better, but anyone who you think needs to mentor you in that field is very key. So if you want to specialize, I diverted, and when I came back to my office, I knew that, I've pivoted into the development space. So the short courses, there are a lot of short courses at University of Oxford. I remember my boss sending me on a 6-week holiday to take a grandchild to the UK. And I was like, what will I do for 6 weeks in the UK? And I said, you know what, it's my opportunity to do my summer school. And I applied for a summer school at the London School of Economics on public policy analysis. You might not have time, you might not have the resources to do like the masters and all, but you can have a look at the local courses. Like I went to Lagos Business School. I did a short course, was sponsored by the World Bank. And today, those group of women, they're amazing people. Don't have moved to government, but they've added value. And in our group, there's so many things they're shared, career opportunity, appointment. And I can remember during COVID, I was in a committee on supporting MSMEs to cushion the effect of COVID. And they're like, okay, wow, Rose, we'll be happy to support these women, because like this group of women are not like the poor of their database might never be in the government database. So these are just group of private, I remember mentioning, sharing the details, and they got the support, the Japan government grant. So imagine not being in such $100 grant, but the results, the story behind those things was great. People, what's the worst that can happen? I share their story, that look, that this group of amazing women, and I don't think if FCT is shortlisting SMEs to get support, they will never list. And so emphasis on networking, collaboration in the top place. Oh, your friends. So today, Tina is inviting us, though we're related, commonality of working in government, being in the same space, receive us. So you need to collaborate. Relationship is key. If I need anything from Sophie, I'll reach out to her. I have a number, I have some of her details. And now I've gotten contact from this. So it's a two-way, bottom up, bottom. Like if I need something from Ministry of Ms. Bora, now I found a contact. So do not underestimate your relationship and the contact you have below you, or be it mentors. So for me, I'm a bit not the regular kind of mentorship, but your relationship. Relationship is what will take you. I remember sharing about my pastor who I've been emailing for 8 years. He didn't used to reply my email, but when the time came, when they said recommend someone, he recommended me. Like Ms. Bora said, you know, referrals can come from the least person you. And of course, you have to be strategic in your relationship. You know, you don't want to have too many people, but again, have relationship with people in your sector. That way you get access to information, be in groups that are very focused, like the WIMBs. I have so many women group where we share information, resources. You know, people have gotten scholarship. I've had people who will say, oh, Rose, there's something you put. Someone said, there's something you shared. I went to the US. I was shortlisted in the US and I'm back. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Kafas. Thank you. Yes, you highlighted networking, really, really important. Building and sustaining relationships, being part of the group, taking courses, also mapping out agencies and one can also. Ms. Bura, can you please mute your mic? And also being part of like professional bodies that would also assist you. So that is really, really important to help you to specialize in an area. The last of the three questions also goes to Ms. Abu. So what will be your recommendations for somebody looking to advance their career in government? You have the floor, Ms. Abu.
So thank you for that question. I think a lot has been said, and a lot of them, you know, a lot of the points that have been raised by Rose and Nana are very similar to the points that I'm about to raise. So same thing, you want to advance your career, you have to ensure that you're building yourself. You have to ensure that you are right for the position that you're aspiring to get to. They say, I can't remember the quote now, but it's around being prepared, you know, for when opportunity comes. So you can't just, you know, sit and say, oh, you know, I'd like to do this, I'd like to do that. How are you working on yourself to ensure that if at all this opportunity falls in your lap, you are actually ready? Rose raised the point around trainings. And it's something I always say to everybody who I work with or who I've had the opportunity to advise. Make sure that you are investing in yourself. It may seem like, you know, it's futile. It may seem expensive sometimes. Try to iron out the areas that you can afford and try to train yourself. Don't wait for, if you work in an institution sometimes, in my institution, I remember for a lot of the trainings that I would go for, a lot of people always thought that they were sponsored by my institutions. Yes, some of them were, but some of them weren't. So I would set aside money. It would drive me crazy sometimes, you know, trying to pay for some of these things. But I know what I want to do and I know where I want to go. I know that I want to be prepared if the opportunity for something comes up. I want my CV to reflect a certain type of, you know, person that I am. So invest in yourself is the most important thing that I would like to add to what all the other speakers have said. There's a quote by some American philanthropist, George Lucas, and he says, dreams are extremely important, but you cannot do it unless you imagine it. So make sure that you are imaginative, even in your trying to advance your career. Don't dream small. Dream big and then work towards it. It might be grueling. It might seem impossible when you set out your goals. You have your vision board, and it looks like you say you want to be the CEO of some company, and somebody's laughing at you because you just started there as a clerk, or you just started. Dream big, and then work towards it.
Thank you so much, Ms. Abu. In fact, when you were saying invest in yourself, go on trainings, pay for your trainings, and some of the trainings you paid, you know, from your pocket, and you know, your colleague's study was sponsored. It reminds me of myself when I also got into the ministry, I think 11 years ago. I found it really appalling that there was no training, you know, opportunities for young officers, young people who were coming up. And I remember there was a time that I wanted to take a training in a particular course. I saved my salary for a whole year to take that training. I kid you not, my salary from, in fact, with additional, support from here and there, because I knew for me, it was really important that I took that course because it was a career path that I had chosen, a career path that I was interested in. And for me to start to build on that, it was very important that I took that training. And so I saved all that money, and we really, really paid off, because now this training 10 years later has helped me. It's part of what I do every day now, and it's really, really helped my career. And it's also, giving me more desires to still build on that and take more trainings. In fact, one of the things I also did was that every year I made sure I took one major training. So a lot of saving was, I had to save a lot of money at the beginning just to try to ensure that it is really, really important to advance your career. You cannot advance a career without training. Anybody that is telling you that, I don't know what advice they're giving you. Beyond what you do on your everyday job, you need to go beyond that. You need to get trainings, and there's so many opportunities to get trainings now. There's so many free trainings you can get online. You can take those to start to get a hang on, what it is that you want to do before you now take a paid training, because knowledge is more important than the paper. So get the knowledge first, and then you can get the paper. So thank you so much to our participants. Thank you so much to our speakers for all your wonderful responses. I don't know if there are any other questions that we would are there any other questions? If you have a question, we can I just wanted to say that in the group chats, someone doesn't have a question. Onyeche Ocheku doesn't have a question, but she wants to say good job to the speakers and that we need to do more of this. And so please, I hope that when we call on you again, you would come. Oluwakemi Badamosi also wants to thank the speakers, and she said that the insight has been great. So thank you, our wonderful speakers. I don't know if we have any other questions, comments. You can put them in the chat box. I just want to give each of our speakers 2 minutes to probably wrap up. If you have anything to say, final words, before we proceed to conclude this meeting. So, Ms. Mbura, we want to give you the opportunity to wrap up and to give us your final words. If you're there, please.
Okay. I must commend you for this opportunity, to share my little insight, and for us to collaborate and share insights as well. It has been quite insightful, quite enlightening. And really, I don't really have much to say, but just to encourage everyone to continue to network, share ideas. And like one of the speakers rightly mentioned, training, really self-development is key, for success in any endeavor that we choose to pursue in life. And I wish everyone a wonderful weekend, and I pray that we have more opportunities like this to share knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Bura. Ms. Abu, would like to pass the floor to you if you have any final words.
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, I think is the first thing I would like to say. It's been an amazing conversation so far. Final words really are just sort of just to motivate us all. They say that women sort of tend to face certain glass ceilings, when they get to certain career, roles. I think of it more as a labyrinth. So it's a maze. Sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down. But I think at the end of the day, how you navigate these issues relies on your intentionality. So be intentional about every single aspect of your life, and not just even your career, your family life, your personal health and mental health, and then your career. You must find a balance and be intentional as women so that we can always show up at our best at every aspect of our lives. I think that's the final word from me. And thank you to all the participants who have listened in today.
Thank you so much, Ms. Abu. Thank you. Ms. Kefas?
So thank you. This was such a great meeting and insight. And you can see 3 of us are friends, but I'm sure we learned how Tina got her job, and also Sophie, and learning from Ms. Bora. So building on what the 2 speakers have said is, the recipe for success is tenacity, determination, and self-development. And again, one of the things I'll always emphasize is the soft skills. You may have all the knowledge, but you see that soft skills will help you navigate your way, as Sophie said. When you meet people, how you maintain relationships. Sometimes it's not all about money. It could be as little of having access. Instead of going through the whole, I'm trying to do this, or I want you to send this letter to the Ministry of Justice. She will help me. She could say, okay, send it to me, and she could take it straight to the Honorable Minister. Estimate our relationship, and keep pushing. Like you heard from the 2, theirs was more structured. Mine was quite informal and unstructured, but and I turn things around. And I'll end by saying, like my friend's dad would say, I've given you the golden spoon. It's up to you to make it make use of it, or you want to turn it into a wooden spoon. Meanwhile, that means preparation meets opportunity. So thank you, Tina, and thank you to all our participants who stayed to listen to us. Thank you
so much. Thank you. I really, really appreciate you. Thank you so much. We at WIG, we really appreciate our speakers today. Thank you for the panelists. Just to quickly wrap up on what we talked about, I think these were the top points that we made. 1, you need to identify your interest. 2, hard work is necessary. Hard work is necessary. Working for government is not child's play. You need to come with your A game. 3, you also need to be committed. You need to be committed, because there are times that you'll be frustrated, but the commitment will keep you going. You also need to have passion for what it is that you do. Learning and innovation is also really important. So you have to keep on learning. You have to go for trainings. You have to train yourself, which also is part of personal development. You need you need some mentors, people who will help and guide you, towards guide you in your path in the government, and also to help navigate, circumstances here and there, and also to just help you, build your career. Which is also important to ensure that you network with. Right? You also network to expand your base. Expand your base for people within your skill area or outside, so that you can also advance your career. And also you need to map out a career path for yourself. I don't know if I left anything out, but so far this are the highlights that we have taken from today. And I really want to use this opportunity to thank our speakers once again. Thank you for all your insight, and thank you also to all our participants. Just a few announcements before you leave today. We would like to announce that we will be giving 3 paid trainings to our participants. To our 3 participants at the trainings will be organized by Tom Associates, and we had the 3 of our first speakers, 3 of the people who joined the meetings first. I'm trying to just get their names. We have first Wadiwa Bada, we have Iman Mewada, and Teju Bello. You are the 3, they're going to be the 3 recipients of our paid trainings. Then also to use this opportunity to announce that we are commencing our Space to Thrive S22 mentoring program. We will also be accepting 3 mentees for this program. Our speakers today have been gracious enough to take 1 mentee each. And so we are grateful to you. We would have a mentee in the development sector, 1 in law, and then 1 in finance. So anyone who is interested in the mentorship, you would have to write a 500-word essay to tell us why you should be selected. And then all the applications should be forwarded to our email address, which is wig.ng@outlook.com. You can find that in the chat box. And also today we have partnered with Tom Associates Training, and they are willing to give a 10% discount for everyone who has participated in this meeting today. You just have to give them a code, which is wig.ng21. Thank you so much, everyone. And then we also want to seize this opportunity to announce that we will be doing this more often. Our next webinar will be in June, and we will be focusing on finance and money, because we know it is very, very essential to talk about money, especially for civil servants. It is really, really essential. So we're going to learn how to earn, how to save, and how to also invest as an employee of government. You're not only building your career, but you also have to have some kind of sustenance, which is very key to your well-being. So on a final note, I wish again to thank all the speakers and the participants. And we at WIG, we are very, very grateful that you joined us today. And we wish you a very, very happy Easter. Thank you, everyone. Have a very, very good holiday. Thank you.
Thank you, Nwatam. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye. Thank you, Sophie. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye. Thank you.